You know I always have that thing on me. I'm traveling this week and decided I wanted to show off what I carry with me when I do. While I'm talking, I wanted to show some B-roll I took on my trip, so I'm hoping you all enjoy the view. I have a Steam Deck. I feel like I should preface this whole thing with that, but I really hate traveling with it. It's such a minor annoyance that I'm making sound bigger than it is, but you gotta understand, I'm someone who tries to pack light wherever I go. The less bags, the better. So I generally only ever like to have a backpack. Compared to the RP2S or Android handhelds in general, the Steam Deck just takes up too much freaking space and is really freaking heavy. The RP2S, which is super small, fits right in my backpack or pocket, weighs only a few ounces, so you literally do not even notice you have it. You know, these little Android handhelds have become quite the industry over the past few years. I feel like I never saw anything like this back before 2020, other than like the GPD Win, which I didn't end up buying, but returning almost immediately because it was not at all what I was looking for once I had it in my hand. My first foray into this world was actually the RP2 Plus, which I loved, but it was really only good for up to PS1, but even then struggled if you tried to use any kind of upscaling. In addition, like many other contemporary handheld emulators, it had the Switch-style analog stick along with a PSP-style slider joystick on the lower right. So, okay, it did the job, but it really got me interested in this world. I think most people would feel the same way if they had a chance to use one of these things. On to the 2S again. When this thing was announced, I gobbled it up. A more powerful version of the console that I already loved? Sign me up!
Oh my god! Okay, it's happening! Everybody stay calm! Everybody stay calm!
I sold the RP2 Plus and bought this one that same day. These analog sticks are not to be overlooked. And they're, I think, my favorite part of the device by far. For how small they are, they have an amazing amount of travel to them, and they click for the R3 and L3 functions. The screen is a 4:3 aspect ratio, so a square, which is a huge preference that I have. I've read complaints that the screen is too small or that the bezels are too large, but if I'm gonna be honest, I really like both of those things. I don't find the screen to be too small at all and think the bezels blend right in and fade away once you get going in a game and stop focusing on the device itself. It feels really sturdy and dense in the hand and gives the impression that Retroid packed a huge amount of tech into this little guy. You have analog shoulder buttons, which are needed for some GC emulation, but this thing, in my testing, wasn't really able to handle the games like that anyway, so, I mean, you know, that's cool, we like that. And what about the power of this device? I found it did really well again up to certain GC or PS2 games. I recently played through the original Animal Crossing on this thing and had an awesome time. Moving around with these joysticks is really something that needs to be felt to be explained. In fact, they're so good, I believe Retroid has stuck with this exact same style on later devices. After that, I played through one of my favorite games of all time, Tales of Symphonia, and that worked really well too. Some games just didn't though. I wasn't able to get Mario Kart Double Dash running right at all. For some reason, the entire thing was shaded in this like deep blue color as if every stage was taking place at night. And I know, you can download different APKs and versions of Dolphin to find the one that works best, but I've recently moved back to an all-console setup again, away from emulation, so it really hasn't been something that I've had the interest in reinvesting the time into. Even when I was, though, testing out 3 versions of Dolphin per game was not something I loved to do. Let's go over the ports. On the bottom, you have a TF card slot, which is where you stick the SD card to expand the storage of the device. When you do this, just quick PSA, you'll be asked if you want to use the SD card as an expansion for the Android file system, or if you just want to use it as additional storage. I would strongly suggest you use it as additional storage, as the other option causes the device to see it as an expansion to itself, and it can no longer be taken out, worked on, and put back. I much prefer to use a card reader to work with these SD cards rather than rely on the slower USB and charging port on the tops of these devices, but literally, you do you. The D-pad is super clicky and responsive. It's perfect for 2D games and long gaming sessions. The buttons themselves are tack switches, which are little clicky switches that some game companies go with over the classic membrane style that have been used since the beginning of time. I find that the travel on these types of controllers are slightly less, which I don't love, but they are definitely more clicky and audible. What's cool here is that the D-pad sits on top of a central pivot, allowing the solid piece of plastic to roll around effortlessly on each of the buttons. What this means is you're going to have an easier time not hitting those accidental diagonals. Anyone who's used a really worn-in SNES controller knows how it feels to be able to move your character left and right without leaving the down arrow, so this is a really nice feature to have. Then we have the face buttons. These feel like traditional membrane buttons, so you do get a good amount of travel here, which I like, but it can feel a little mushy, and I have had my thumb slip a bit after some classic, hardcore, late-night gaming sessions.
You know, you're obnoxious too.
To wrap this up, I think there's a more important thing that always gets missed here. The reality of being a content creator somewhat necessitates you keeping up with trends, talking about what's new, and moving on to the next best thing as quickly as possible. I would consider myself a hobbyist at best, so I found it overwhelming to find an entry point into these handhelds. There's an unspoken rule that spending money on anything less than the latest and greatest is nothing but a waste. I've also seen people proudly showing off their purchase only to be met with elitists on Reddit claiming they wasted their money on that particular model or that they should have simply waited for the next great thing to come out just over the horizon. I guess that's kind of the beauty of showing off a device like this. It's not the most powerful or feature-packed, it's not the smallest or the lightest, but it is an improvement to the original device that started it all for me, and that's more than enough for me to recommend it. If you're interested in getting into this world, first of all, uninstall Reddit and head to Facebook Marketplace to see what's on offer. Hell, I know people that still have the original Ambernick device they bought years ago, and it's still going strong. Thank you so much again. If you decided to go ahead and look for one of these puppies, I'd love to hear what you thought in the comments section below. And hey, if you liked what you're seeing, why not subscribe? I try to keep a pretty consistent upload schedule on all things gaming or comedy, and have plenty of ideas left in the old noggin. Have a great rest of the day!